there, my beautiful, gorgeous beings of light to the Nick and Bean Unscripted. Yeah, baby.
I'm Beanie.
I'm Nick.
We're going to take you on a journey of conversations that include things like purple unicorns, aliens, real life stuff, and anything in between.
We can't wait to see where these conversations take us, because I can guarantee you they're going to get pretty cray-cray.
Well, with you in the room, Nicola, anything can happen.
That is true. Thank you for joining us on our journey. If you have any input that you want to add to this channel, we would love to hear from you. In the meantime, let's get the show on the road. Welcome, family. We are super excited today. We have Neil, who is joining us from Costa Rica. So apparently a storm's just blowing in. So we're very fortunate to hopefully have a stable connection for the entire interview. But today we're really wanting to tap into the benefits that we've experienced and the knowledge and wisdom that's available utilizing plant medicine to heal ailments that may consist of mental, physical, emotional, toxicity, all that kind of stuff. But, look, I'm not going to go into it because Neil has a lot more information than what I do. Neil, thank you for joining us. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm really good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that introduction?
No, it was great. It was great. And I'm super interested actually to hear about your experiences with plant medicine.
Yeah. Well, you currently work with, and the reason why I found you work with plant medicine people that are based in Costa Rica. You also run and facilitate with your partner, Fiona, with a Sowa Soma. Is that correct?
Sowa Soma, yeah.
Yeah. Which is beautiful, offering plant-based medicinal work, one-on-one therapy, mentoring, which is really exciting. It's illegal here in Australia, and very a taboo subject when we start talking about plant medicine, because obviously there's lots of...
Only specifically if we're talking about ayahuasca, etc.
Yeah,
because there is a lot of plants that are medicine that you utilize as well in your practice, right?
Yeah, like I work with all kinds of plants from like the big well-known psychedelic plants to all the way to the dandelion.
Yeah. So can you explain that a little bit more in depth? Because obviously you do that through a dieta. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's where, as you might know, before you drink a plant like ayahuasca, you're subject to dietary restrictions and some lifestyle restrictions. So when you diet a different plant, like say rose or dandelion, you'll drink this plant when you wake up in the morning. You'll drink it at night before you go to bed, meditate with it. And different plants have different qualities and can help with different ailments, whether they be physical or emotional. For instance, if you struggle to keep good boundaries with people, like white sage is a great plant to diet with. If you're struggling with parasites, mugwort is a great plant to diet, and not just physical parasites, but energetic parasites as well.
Amazing.
So different plants have different qualities to them, and there's just such a huge amount to learn in the plant kingdom.
So that's incredible, because most of the what we've experienced is obviously ayahuasca. But before we go into all the benefits of plant medicine, tell us a little bit about your journey, because we know working with shamanic people, it's a total devotion. It's it's not for the faint-hearted. You're having to level up continuously. I guess I'm really interested in the unfolding of your life, really. Like you're obviously you're based in Costa Rica, but you're actually from Manchester. So how did this all transpire? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, sure. The first time that I ever drank ayahuasca, I was doing a road trip from North America all through Central America towards Panama. And had just stuck in a cycle really of going out at the weekends, drinking, partying, then working all week. and going through that constant cycle and thinking, wow, is this it? Is this my life now? Is this all there is? And decided to take a trip, go traveling. And on the way, I was reading a book called Wild by, I forget the name of the author now, but it was a journalist that had suffered from depression, and she'd gone to live with all these different tribes. And one of the chapters was about a tribe in the Amazon where she drinks ayahuasca. And that was kind of not the first time I'd heard of it. It had been coming into my awareness in lots of different ways. And so in Costa Rica, in the mountains, I found a Peruvian curandera and drank with her for the first time. And the ceremony just blew me away completely. And I remember as the medicine started to kick in, I looked to my wife at the side of me and said, I was right. I was right about this. All through my life, and a little kid, like I'd always had dreams and visions. I'd always kind of been stepping across the veil and having conversations with plants and different beings. And yeah, it wasn't always understood or appreciated by the people around me. But yeah, it became this, oh wow, I wasn't making it up. This is really there. But even so, after the first ceremony, as I'm coming back down to earth, I remember saying, I'm never doing this again. Not because it was
I think we've all said that.
Yeah. But more just because I really felt like it was a once in a lifetime experience. For me, it was enough for me. And the spirit of the medicine kind of winked and smiled and was like, you will definitely be back. And I was like, I don't think I will. It's not, it's not happening. Sure enough, once I landed back home in England, the plants kept coming into my awareness again and again, and I found myself assisting and apprenticing and getting more and more involved, but never with the intention really of doing this work. It was more just because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being in the space. I felt really at home in a way that I'd never felt doing anything in my life. And so from there, this went on for a number of years until eventually I find myself, there's a retreat, a ceremony happening, and the guy running it doesn't show up and cancels. And everybody who's been working with me is like, oh, you need to do it. Like, you should do it. And so I do. I ask the medicine. I get permission and serve, and it went from there really, and wasn't kind of the traditional route into working with these plants. But from there, over the years, I've worked a lot with more traditional teachers, and continue to study, continue to learn, and to work with the diets, really. The diets where we go into that space of communing with the plants very deeply is where we do our learning and where we gain our strength and our relationships with the plants from.
Beautiful. I was going to ask, so you were going to say something?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So that was when you were about 30, and obviously, so you've been working with plant medicine for over 10 years, am I going to say? I don't know how old you are.
Yeah, I think it's around 12 years. 12 years now.
Yeah. And it is an intense process. So when did you decide, okay, I'm going to live in Costa Rica and do this for like when?
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely a moment before that where I like I said, it was never my intention really to go into this work. It kind of happened as a series of coincidences and accidents and events, shall we say. But there did come a moment where I sat down with the plants and said, actually, this is what I do now. And I commit to you for the rest of my life, whether I'm sat here on my own or whether I'm sat here with other people serving them, this is now what I do, come what may. And that really changed things quite a lot in terms of the direction the work went in. And we were in a place where we had a lot of people coming to work with us. We had a lot of people like we were booked up like 3 months in advance for ceremonies, and it was going really strongly, and just got a real sense that it wasn't, we weren't in the right place, we weren't in the right spot, and we needed a bigger place. And so we started looking for a new place to work from, a new house. We started looking a mile down the road, and then that expanded out to looking in places like Wales and Scotland. And we looked far and wide, and we really couldn't find anywhere. And I was at a sweat lodge, and you pray to the rocks before you go into the sweat lodge. And my prayer was, where should we go? Where should we go to do this work safely and be protected? Where do we need to go? And I went into the lodge. I came out, and as I came out, a woman gave me a piece of paper, and she said, go and read that somewhere quiet. So I went and I sat underneath this big, huge oak tree, and I opened the paper, and the paper said, ask a tree a question and you might get an answer. And so I said, where should I go? And straight away, this flash running through me, it just said Costa Rica, like loud and clear. And I was like, I'll be honest, it terrified me. The answer terrified me. And yeah, I told my wife, and she was like, no fucking way. We're not moving to Costa Rica. Not happening. I was like, okay. And then we continued to look for houses, and everything we tried fell flat on its face. Everything fell through, everything. And then we found one that we had our heart set on. It had a waterfall next to it. It was beautiful. And then again, at the last minute, it fell through, and it was all went wrong due to legal issues with the seller. And it just went wrong. And my wife was exhausted. She just turned and said, the universe is telling me something here, and it's saying like, Costa Rica is it, there's nothing here for us. And so we sold everything we had and packed it up into 7 suitcases and got on a plane.
Wow.
That was it.
What an incredible story. I love that.
So you got on a plane back to UK or to Costa Rica?
Costa Rica.
To Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Just with now I'm going to tap into, because obviously we've done ceremonies, and what I've really loved about ayahuasca is like, for me personally, there's such extremities from each experience, right? They're just, and most of the time I get my mind blown apart a billion times, and I'm there trying to, keep flowing and coming back into my heart and all that kind of stuff. But what I really love, and there's different ways you facilitate ceremonies. We've been to many that vary in different ways. Personally, I really love structure. I think structure is really great. It makes me feel safe and secure, that everyone knows what they're doing. And if anyone gets out of line, they're kind of, told to kind of go back to that space of internal work. It makes me feel comfortable. Tell me, how do you facilitate? And I guess it's such a powerful plant. There's just so much to really understand and know what actually happens when we're like drinking this.
Which question do you want to answer?
There's so many in there, but just, yeah.
I guess what she's trying to say is, do you follow, because obviously you've learned your own experience through the plants and the medicine, and then you've sat with many teachers of different tribes, the Shipibos, and I can't remember the other one, but you can tell us. So you've sat with different teachers that will show you their ways. There'll be similarities, potentially different things. Do you add your own I guess it doesn't even have to be a modernized version, but do you guys add your version to it as well whilst following the traditions, or is it like a yeah, how do you do it?
Yeah, it's um I really love the Shipibo lineage. I love the tradition of that because it feels very strong and intentional. It feels like when we go into ceremony, there's an intention to heal and an intention to clean the energy in the space.
Mm.
And for that reason, I like that lineage, and I've encountered a lot of different teachers from that lineage over the years. And most recently started working with Manuela Maua under her sort of guidance with the Tree of Noya Rao,
Mm.
and learning a lot from that because you have the Icaros that you can sing in the ceremony, which support the work of the medicine and help to bring in a vibrational element to the space that helps people to restructure their energy and helps them to heal, and helps to clean the energy in the space and in the people. And the way they teach and the way that they sing is that you have the rhythm and the melody, but you don't have the words to the song because the words are necessary to what's going on in that particular moment. So you sing the words needed at that given time
Mm.
to do the job that you're doing in that moment. And you have loose structures and loose melodies to songs that you bring in and then sing within that framework. So that's early on in ceremony, I like to work a lot that way. And then kind of as we move through a midpoint in ceremony, I'll bring in more of my own things. So my own songs that I've been taught by plants, but also just medicine songs that will help people kind of continue to move through the journey. And maybe even towards the end, some instruments as well I'll play. So it kind of moves through that phrase. And in that way, it is kind of a bridge between cultures, because I go and learn with the Shipibo. I work with them, but I also know that I'm not from there. I'm not of that place. And a lot of the people who come and sit in ceremony, well, not a lot, all of them aren't from that place. They're not from the Shipibo tribe. So I remember one ceremony in particular, I was dieting a tree called Chuchuwasi, and I was singing in different languages, and the tree just said, "Hey, no one can understand you. Sing in English. Sing the song so they can feel it, so that they can understand it." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense." So I will sing in Spanish and English as well through the ceremonies.
Yeah, can I? That good question for that. Like to say, can you sing it in English so we can understand it? And then you said for a minute, it dropped out, but you said feel it. And to me, like everything with the work that you're doing, it's vibrational, right? We're talking about the healing, the communication of a plant. We're talking about you being able to receive communication from a plant. And so a song or a tone or a vibration are going to elicit the response that is necessary to match that. So would you say that it's like the conscious ego mind that wants to be able to know the words to hang on to something, to understand it? Because I would, in my thought, it would almost be like you don't need to understand it from such an analytical space of knowing what word is being said, because it is the tone and the vibration in that moment that matches the medicine, you and the person receiving, all in the one moment to have that experience that they're meant to have.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why at the beginning of the ceremony, a lot of it's in Shipibo and very vibrational. And that medicine exactly that you're talking about. I'll sing in English and Spanish more towards the back end of the ceremony. And of course, for me, that's still vibrational. And yes, the ego, the mind can understand the words, but for me, the ego and the mind needs healing too. as well as
true.
the energy, as well as the body. That
Mm.
part also needs to heal. And I think especially when you've been in this intense journey with the medicine and you're starting to come back into your body and back to your mind, I think they're the songs that help to bring you home
That's so
and give you a
true.
good
So
soft
true.
landing.
Yeah, there's
And also integrate what you brought and integrate it with the mind so that there's a sense of what you've done that night. There's a sense of this is what I've done and this is why I've done it and this is what I've learned.
there's a big sense of community in that as well too, because it is per se like an individual's journey in that room. Like you can have 20 people in a room and everyone will have totally different experiences, and maybe a couple will come together having the same experience, but it's a very individual experience, even though we're all having the same medicine. So I can definitely see the power of towards the end bringing everyone together through song as a community and being able to express that and join together as a connection. I think is really beautiful.
Yeah. And you know, every ceremony is different and it calls for a different kind of medicine and it's a different situation. So like I've had experiences where I've been at that front end of the ceremony and I'm singing an Ikaro around, say, Bobinsana, and I'm connecting with that plant and we're working with that medicine. And she'll tell me to sing a song that she taught me in English because that's actually the song that that particular person needs in that moment. So it's not that I'm necessarily ever doing this is a really important thing. This is why I drink medicine in the ceremony. This is why I drink ayahuasca, to be in the space, because then I'm tuned into the plants and I'm simply doing what they ask. I'm always just singing what they ask. It's never my own ideas or what I want, or as much as possible I try to make sure it's not that. And then it's what the space needs, and that's the role of space holders, really, is just to give the space whatever it needs.
Yeah. So you're not going in with the playlist.
No.
I was going to ask about, obviously there's so much that transpires in, it can, obviously some people fall asleep and whatever else, but, there's so much that can transpire. There's so much information that can come down. And, a lot of the time you walk away and you go, what the fuck what actually just happened? Because there's just been so much in that process. What is your experience, or what do you inform the participants when they're having that kind of information, potentially overload? What do you say to them, and what's your guidance in that?
For me, I completely understand the concept that you're talking about, and it shows up for me a lot. When I'm working with a medicine and I'm being like shown the secrets of the universe and the fabric that entwines it and the coding underneath everything, the plants will often say your brain isn't going to be able to take this back. Your brain won't be able to bring it back, won't remember this when you come back. And that happens often, and because I feel like we have a limited data available in our brain. It's like an iPhone with a certain amount of data, and when we expand outwards into like the internet and there's all this information, there's only so much of it we can download and retain, which is why I always try and guide people to simplifying what the teaching is, what it is they need to learn to take back and bring into their life, but also know that what your soul can hold is much bigger than what your mind can hold. And so sometimes the information, although you don't have the recall in your mind for that moment, it's there. It's sunk in. It's available to you as and when you need it, but it's kind of only there when you need it. And sometimes it will come out in your life, and you'll almost like, oh, where did that come from? Where did that information come from? Where did that idea come from?
And would you say that's like similar to one of my questions was how to explain it to people in a sense, because there's not you can talk about it to someone, and sometimes you'll talk to people who haven't experienced it and they're just glazed over with their eyes, like looking at you going, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then you can come across people who have experienced it and you don't even really need to talk because you just kind of do that nod as if you're in some kind of, sister or brotherhood family of knowingness. But is what you were just talking about, I guess it explains my question, to that deep understanding of something, but not being able to intellectualize it because it's just far beyond the mind. Like it's such an experience that you can know, like you said, on a soul level, I believe cellular level as well, with some of the changes that can occur, that we can have the conversation about it through mind to conceptualize it or whatever, to have it to give that picture to someone else, but it's just such a deep knowingness connection. Would you say it's, because to me it's a connection to consciousness itself, to all things, to the, like, oh gosh, I can't even explain it, but the intricacies between, like the spaces in between that you're shown exist, and once you understand that, you can never see life the same.
Yeah, and for me, this is exactly how ayahuasca works with someone in the ceremony, because you have the vine, which is the ayahuasca itself, and the leaf of the chacruna, which has the DMT in it. And when you first drop into the experience and the visuals are starting to come in really strong, often that's the chacruna for me is almost bombarding your mind with visuals, in a way to switch it off, because the ayahuasca doesn't want to speak to your mind necessarily. Mind is a lawyer, a judge, an analyst, all these things. The ayahuasca wants to speak to your soul, and that's what this is. It's soul work. And this is why it's very hard to talk about it and convey the full impact it has on us, and the reality of what the journey was and what it meant, and why, yeah, when you are explaining it to someone who's never experienced it before, you will perhaps see the eyes glaze over and they, oh yeah, that's nice. As opposed to someone who's drank and experiencing it and has that embodied felt sense of what you're talking about. And it's almost like you don't even need to say anything. There's an acknowledgement of, we've both been to the same place.
In that, I have a friend who is an avid meditator and has been for many years. We've done many more commercial chemical party things before. She's very natural now, but her idea, and it's not just hers, a few people have said it who are deep meditators, who say you don't need those things to get to a level, you can do it through meditation. Now, for me, I have a lot of tools under my belt, in like working with energy, kinesiology, all of that sort of stuff. But it's all, even though you have to come out of mind and intuit a lot of things, I still find it really troubling in meditation to sit still for long periods of time and just have no thing, right? So for me, something like plant medicine would be beautiful because it, like you said, talks to my soul, and my mind can't really play a game in it, or if it does, it's still being moved around. So do you believe that we can get to that space that the plant takes us to just by meditating without the plant?
I mean, it's a common thing that I hear, and it's a really difficult question to answer, because like you, I've got a lot of different tools that I work with. and I have a lot of respect for many different healing modalities. Sometimes when I hear that, you can get there without plants, it sometimes it's coming from people that have never worked with plants. And so they are not really able to make that comparison, because you can only really make that comparison if you've experienced both. If you've experienced deep, deep work with the plants and also deep, deep meditation. And I have no doubt that the monks that dedicate their lives daily to meditation experience deep levels of transcendence and go to some very expansive places. I think just in the scriptures and the texts that they've produced over the centuries and the teachings that they have, you can see that there's obviously some deep work going on there. But for me, I start to feel uncomfortable when there's these comparisons made of, well, this is better than this, and that's dangerous, and this is more safe, or this is, whatever it might be. People might be into breath work, or people might be really into Western psychology. And I think the phrase that ayahuasca is like 10 years of therapy in one night probably did ruffle a few feathers amongst the therapist world. But for me, I've never experienced anything like I have with the plants. But at the same time, I'm also deeply, deeply respectful of all these different practices, because I feel like they all have a place and they can all bring good into our lives. And also as humans, we're all so different. We're such a huge tapestry of variety, and we all have different needs. We all have different physiology. We all have a different energy to us. And so some things are going to suit.
I'll follow on from what you're talking about with the acceptance of like everyone being different and having different modalities and respecting all, which I totally agree with. Another question I had for you: do you find that sometimes people get hooked isn't the right word, but continue to come back and sit in medicine almost as its own little addiction or crutch, and they're not integrating in their life?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that I think is really problematic in our world, because for sure I know one of my mentors, Kat, plant medicine people, she has a phrase, don't get caught doing your homework on the teacher's desk, as in like make sure what you're learning, you're going and working with it and integrating it. And sometimes that integration takes months, years, and so there definitely becomes a cycle where people, I think, not addicted to ayahuasca, because it's not really a substance you become addicted to, but I think they can get addicted to the peak experience and having that peak experience in their lives, for sure. And also, I think sometimes what it does is it gives people a sense of community that they don't otherwise have without this medicine. And so that's why, for me, it's really important that we do focus on looking at ways outside the medicine, that we can create community for ourselves, that we can create, bring good people around us. And that's a lot of what the medicine will teach us, is how to be discerning, how to find people that we can connect with, so that, we have a more fulfilling life. And I think that's a really key one. I know the study they did on the blue zones, where people live longer, it focused on diet and what people were eating in those regions. But I think one of the key things that kind of maybe didn't go into as much as it could have is that in all these places, there's a real sense of community, and people like have strong bonds and relationships with those around us, which I think is a really essential nutrient for us as human beings.
Well, unbelievably, I think even to take it back to the other end from the blue zone, like there's so many studies with babies, if they're not held and nurtured, that it deeply affects them on a physical level or physiological level. But also, one of my favorite books, the boy who was raised as a dog, is a psychologist that wrote this book, and one of them was literally interviewing a teenager who was a psychopath because his brother was so fine because he got the connection, and the second brother didn't get any connection from his mum at all because she was stressed and didn't have the village to help her grow this like child like she had before. And he had no feelings because he was never held, he was never touched. And it's like, to me, that was the grossest, as in not gross, disgusting, but grossest as in grand way of proving that we need connection.
And
exactly.
Sorry. You go.
Sorry, say that again, Nicola.
Yeah, and deep connection. There's connection, and I guess there's that deeper connection where you feel, seen and heard and accepted as you are. Which is, I think I just want to, I guess, we're such at a revolutionary, energetic transformation on Earth at the moment. It's a really exciting time to be alive. What has been and what we're moving to in terms of, awakening at a consciousness level and breaking all these paradigms that have been our foundation for a long time. I guess I wanted your perspective on the benefits of plant medicine that you've seen in that change of waking people up. I guess I'd love to hear your thoughts and maybe stories or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate over the years to work with such a wide range of people from all different walks of life, from people that come and then bring their family members to work with me, and then you start to see how the family changes and the dynamic grows and blooms over time. I've worked with a lot of people that have come from criminal backgrounds and a criminal life. And everybody's starting from a different position. What I see is it's very hard to answer this question because the benefits I've seen have been so wide and varied and personal to people. From like your obvious ones, like helping people let go of things like depression and anxiety and all kinds of mental health kind of issues, to giving people a sense of purpose in life as well, helping them find direction on what it is they need to be doing that's going to bring them fulfillment. But also, like for me, a really key one is bringing people into the present moment. And I've had some people who've been super successful in life, have a really beautiful family, have everything going for them on the outside, but are completely miserable on the inside because they struggle to be present with it and appreciate it for whatever reason. There may be a variety of reasons, but just bringing them into that presence of what a gift everything is, what a gift their lives are, and helping them live every second of every day like that, completely flips their lives around. It changes it completely for them. What I think probably my most favorite story of what these plants have done to people was I had a guy in ceremony who was convinced he was going to die, and as we know, like the death can happen. You can go through that process of death and it can feel as real as anything you've ever experienced. And he was convinced he was going to die. And I was almost like, yeah, we talked about this, and this is what can happen. And he was like, no, 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 not one of your deaths. This is a real one. This is actually real. And yeah, I know it feels real. I know it feels real. And this kind of went back and forth, and he was wanting an ambulance, and he was wanting and it went backwards and forwards for a while. Eventually it went on for so long, I told him if he's going to die, then to die quietly in the corner.
Great.
That sounds awful, but we were checking his pulse, we were taking care of him. He was in no danger whatsoever, in good shape.
That's so great. Oh my God, I love that.
The next morning, we kind of hearing everybody's stories, and he said, I had to die last night because I had to see how I'm treating my wife and children, and I had to feel the regret that I would go to my deathbed with, knowing that this is how I treat my wife and wow. It was like he was born into the new reality of I can't die like that. I have to die differently. And so sometimes this is the gift that we get from the medicine, is we get to die so we can see where we're not living, how we want to be living.
God, that's such a great story. And so good. Because I can imagine ceremony it would be quite intense to managing that one kind of dialogue and all that kind of stuff. I was going to talk about the fire, because the fires is what we've experienced, and I don't know, do you offer fires in your ceremony? Is that part of the...
We don't. With the Shipibo way of ceremony, it's done in complete darkness. So we don't have any light at all in the space. The ceremonies that I used to do back in the UK, we did have a fire. So we've had that fire, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because my ceremonies, whilst with the plants, I always really anchor into the elements of the earth, fire, water, air. They play such a huge role in the ceremony, in different ways, whether it's through songs about those elements or whatever it might be. But yeah, the fire, for me, fires are hugely comforting in ceremonies.
Hugely what?
Comforting in ceremonies.
Yeah.
They bring that light.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I guess, a lot of the times when I've been in ceremony, it's been a little bit of a savior for me, because you've got something to focus on, that kind of takes you out of, I guess, a little bit of reprieve, to be honest, in that space. And I guess I would love to know your thoughts, because there's lots of times that are quite challenging in a space that someone might be experiencing. And I imagine you've probably done a shit ton of ceremonies. Is it true that you get a sense of that suffering, quite easily? So let's say I was in ceremony and I didn't have a fire. Obviously, what is the process for that uncomfortable, in our experience, someone would come over and they'd feather and they would move the energy if you didn't have it. Is that the process that you kind of work with? Or
can I ask one question on top of that?
Yeah.
Before I add to your statement, because I think before you were talking about the fire, and to add to that, you're using it to transmute something. It's an offering, right?
Yeah.
Like you're getting solace in the ceremony because you're utilizing the fire to hold something of yours or to help you through it by transmuting that. So we were taught to, in some ceremonies, to offer it to the fire, like we might same as people might write down something on a note and give it to the fire so they can transmute it. And it's using that masculine fire energy to be able to transform and transmute, because that's what the fire is doing all the time. Like it's changing from that flame with the wood to going into the air and, you know, breaking things down. So it's kind of like what you're talking about is giving your tension or whatever it is you're dealing with to the fire.
Yeah,
and when you're watching the fire, you can feel that dissolve.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what was your question to him?
So my question is, because I guess, you know, there's that ability to hone into that energy of the fire. In your regard, if someone's going through something, what's the process? Is it just something that you be more active within the community because you can feel a lot more things and therefore going over? Or what's your process?
Yeah, so we always advise people before ceremony, based on something Kat always gifts to people. You know during ceremony, challenging, difficult things are going to come up. There's a high chance of that happening. And she always gives the example of the buffalo. She'll say, you know, the buffalo, when they see the storm coming, they run directly at the storm, knowing that by running at the storm, they're going to come out the other end sooner.
Is
Whereas
that true?
Is that true?
Away from, that's true. I believe so. I mean,
wow.
If it's true, great. If not, it still gets the point across.
Next time I run into a storm, I'll be like, hang on, I don't know if this is so true. It makes sense to do it that way.
They go straight in. Yeah. I think they're the only animal that does it. They go straight into it, knowing they'll come out the other side, knowing that if they try and run away from the storm's going to follow them, and they're going to be stuck in that storm for longer. So we advise people, anything that's coming up, go to it, go straight to it, because you can't run away from it, for one. And if you try and fight with it, you're going to be there all night fighting. The sooner you're able to go to it, the sooner you're going through it. And within the ceremonial space, when someone is kind of struggling, it's very apparent, you know, the energy in the space is a lot more acute. You can feel it a lot more easily. You can see it, and especially because I've drank. And you know, when I drink and I'm holding space for others, my body really isn't my own. It's like ayahuasca takes over. And so as I'm singing, and like, again, I'll say to sometimes you're not going to like the song that I sing, or the songs that the Icaros I'm singing, because it's going to feel uncomfortable within you. And so my body will shift and just move towards a person, and I'll start singing to that particular person. And, you know, as you're singing, you'll see them, you know, moving around and getting more uncomfortable, and eventually the purge comes and the release. So that's generally why. And of course, we have the shikapa. We have all different kinds of perfumes that we can work with and use and blow on the person. The mapacho smoke as well, to blow on people when we are clearing heavier energy, moving heavier energies out of the space.
That's amazing. Thank you, Neil. That was beautifully explained. Yeah.
Yeah, for me as well, we always say to people, like, you know, if you need help, ask for help. And it's not always necessarily like help in a medicinal way like that, in an energy way like that. Sometimes it literally is presence. Sometimes it's having someone sit next to your mat with you while you're going through something, whether they're just there or it's just a hand to hold, whatever it might be. It's just having someone there with you, so you don't feel alone in that moment of whatever it is you're working through.
That's beautiful. I have
got the purge.
Yeah. I have this thing. So I'm a purger. Apparently, one of the medicine women that I've sat with quite a bit, she says I'm a fitter, a fainter, and a purger. So I'm quite thorough with my my journeying. Some people don't purge, and there's this idea that's spoken of that if you don't need to purge, it's because you, I mean, it's not a greater than, but it's like it's not a necessary thing anymore. But then I've also read that there's like a physiological gland at the back of your occiput or somewhere, and if it's in a certain position for some people, you're likely to be more of a purger to everything, not just something. So I've hung on to that to go see I'm not like I'm not always struggling and purging, but I am. I've got a queasy stomach. But do you believe that as well? Like the purer someone is, or the less they've got to sort through, they're not going to purge?
I personally don't believe in that. I've seen the most incredible, beautiful souls purging. I've seen masters purging. I've seen people that have been doing this work for many years purging. Because the reason for purging sometimes can be is so wide and varied and different. Sometimes people don't purge because they're holding on to the energy that they actually need to be letting go of.
Yeah.
And it can, in the way that you've said it, become almost like a bit of egotistical one-upmanship. Like if I don't purge, then that means that I had nothing to let go of. I must be great. I must be all good. And in my experience, that's not been the case. I feel like the reality is the more honest you are with yourself and the work that you're going to do, the more you are susceptible to purging, because you're ready to face that work, do that work, and let go of whatever it is that you need to let go of. I had a ceremony recently where I had been speaking to a young man before the ceremony, and he'd been talking about all the critical voices in his head that kind of get to him and put him down and so on. And I remember asking him, well, do you feel ready to let go of those voices? And he was like, yeah, I think I am tonight. I think I'm ready. And we were in ceremony, and as I'm singing and working with this guy, the medicine just flips on me, and he's like, are you ready to let go of the critical voices in your head? and turn the whole thing around. and straight away, as I'm singing, I feel the purge coming, and I just grab a bucket and and away it goes.
That's brilliant.
And likewise, I've seen some excellent curanderos that have been doing this work for a long time, vomiting in such a state on the floor, purging in front of the whole space, in front of the whole ceremony. And we have plenty of nights where we don't purge and we're just working and nothing happens. But sometimes, we're humans too, and we have things that we need to purge, and we have things that we need to work on. And likewise, sometimes I've seen maestros, when they've been working on someone with quite heavy energy, afterwards they'll need to purge to kind of release whatever they might have been holding to, or what might have cross-contaminated, whatever may have happened. But yeah, I've had people that have been in ceremony for maybe 10 ceremonies before they purge, and then when they do purge, they really purge.
Yeah.
So it's kind of varied, and I've also had ceremonies where I felt really complete and really good, and just haven't felt like I've needed to purge anything. So it does happen that way too on occasion, but we're dynamic beings. We live in the world. We have interactions, life happens, events happen, and so I don't think that space is possible to hold and maintain, if that makes sense. I think eventually you're always going to have something that's going to need to purge.
Yeah. Even if it's not a purge, it's still getting released in some way.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to ask, because you've spoken about, you know, that you really become the plant really when you start to hold ceremonies. Does it change? Do you, after all the ceremonies you've had, are you experiencing a different level of consciousness when in that space from when you started, or is it still pretty much the same?
I would say it's changed dramatically from when I first started doing this work to where I am now with it. It's quite a fine line we have to get, because we want to be deep enough in the medicine that we can see what's happening energetically, and we're fully connected with the medicine to sing whatever needs to be sung. But obviously we're on that threshold of potentially going so deep in that we lose our faculties and where we are. So it's an interesting dance. And like I say to everybody before ceremony, we're all stepping into the unknown tonight, every single time. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know what's gonna happen. We really do go into that space of the unknown every single time, which is why I'm still nervous before every ceremony. You know,
That's great.
Not as much as I used to see, but like,
because you know you know what she can do.
That exactly. And you know, I never know what's going to be coming up for myself. I never know what's going to be reflected back at me from a participant, or what might happen. We're always constantly doing our own shadow work, doing our own work with ourselves, as well as holding the space. But yeah, it's definitely progressed. It's definitely to a different level than what it was. The relationship feels much deeper. The merging between human and plant feels much stronger every single time. And interestingly enough, it feels like the longer I go, the less that I need to drink to go deeper in.
I've heard that before.
Like the opposite of tolerance. Yeah, the opposite of tolerance happens. You almost get less tolerance and need less to get in.
That's amazing. I was going to ask, probably one of my final questions I have, which is, what would you say to people that are scared, that, you know, that you know,
scared to do it?
Scared to do it. Yeah, scared to do it. What would you say to people that are like, oh, you know, like...
I would say, yeah, you should be scared, because it's scary a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But why do I keep doing it? Why do I keep coming back? From everything that I've seen, from everything that I've experienced, I genuinely believe with every being in my soul that these plants have our best interests at heart. And so whatever we're experiencing, whatever we go through in ceremony, it's all ultimately for our greater good. And it's all to make us stronger, more resilient, more loving, more compassionate, more understanding, with greater awareness, all these great attributes that we grow and work with during ceremony. Yeah, it's to send us into a better place, into a better direction in life. And so for me, that makes it completely worthwhile. Yeah, I guess that fear is a good thing. It's, for me, when people come and they're not afraid, that's when I'm kind of a bit unsure of what's going on, and a bit concerned. And they're perhaps the people that need more care. I think if you're afraid, it's a healthy thing. It's a good thing. Like we always say as well to people in ceremony, you don't have to drink a huge amount of medicine on your first time. You can drink a half amount or a little amount, and just slowly get to know the plant, create the relationship. And those ceremonies where people are drinking the first time and they're a little bit afraid and they have that smaller dose, it goes a long way to creating trust and safety so that they feel ready to go in and dive in with a deeper dose.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that is really beautiful. Do you have any?
I don't think I have any other questions. I guess probably what with that calling, it's interesting that calling. I believe that she calls to you, or the medicine calls to you when it's time and when it's not. And I know I went through a period in my life where my first experience was in Peru, and it was horrendous. And I got what I was meant to get, but it was very physical anyway. But when I came back to Australia, it wasn't for a year and a half that all of a sudden it just kept popping up for me. Like it just kept popping up and popping up. And then I'm like, okay, I have to source this. I have to like start inquiring and doing whatever. And I think for about a year and a half, in a year, I think I kept getting called back every time I got an email or something. It was like, okay, yep, okay, yep, okay, yep. And I can distinctly remember the email, like this email came and I was just like, oh. It was almost like I needed to check myself because there was no calling. And it's the same every time, right? But I just got nothing this time. And to really honor that as a thing, to understand, I guess, when we're being invited in by the medicine, but also that discernment to know when it's not time. Obviously for you it's different because you're living it and you're doing it all the time and that devotion to it. But I guess for myself, like I've never shut the door on the medicine, but it hasn't called me for over a year now again. And it's almost like it goes in stints. If I do it intensively for a while, and then like the last time I stopped, I was helping a friend facilitate, and it started the last three, I started wondering whether it was the space for me to keep doing that, because I had clients and people that I wanted to bring through, and it was easy to do that way as well. They felt safe with that, with me being a part of it. And then so I just asked the medicine, like, is it time? Like, should I still be there? And literally the whole entire night was, you're done, 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 to the point where I was like, shut up. Like, okay, I've got it. Thank you. I get the message. And then it was like, if I had any doubt, it was like, I think I really needed to know. And that's why it came through like that, because I had, before going in, I was having that fight in my mind of like, but you're in service and you're doing, these things and whatever. But I think maybe the space that I was in at the time wasn't where I was meant to be. And so really, it was really challenging to honor that in the service as well, but to really get that direct message. And I haven't been back into a space since then. Like I've done with sweat lodges and stuff, but I haven't been back into that space because it just literally hasn't called me. Like I've teetered around it and gone, no, it's not ready yet. Don't know why I'm telling you that story.
And I feel really strongly about this, that it's, these plants, these medicines, they grow in the ground. They're a renewable source, but they're not infinite. And we have to be really mindful of how we work with them, how often we work with them. And for me, if you're not being called by the plants, then it's not your time to drink. And like for all the ceremonies that I do where I'm holding space, I only drink for myself when the medicine calls me to do so. And at no other time do I do that. I only drink when it's time for me to do my work and she calls me to it. And so that's really an important take on things. And of course, as like circles become bigger and expand, and we want to tell people about what we're doing, you'll see opportunities to drink on email, on social media, and all these different places. And it's not necessarily the call to the medicine. If you get an email that there's a circle,
Mm.
like you said, you'll know within you whether it's time or not. You'll feel that pull from her to say, come, like it's time again. And often, like we talked about earlier, we need, and the medicine knows we need those periods of integration to work. We've been taught to let it sink into our lives, to let it show up in our lives, and she'll give us that break. She'll give us that time to do our work.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And trusting in that, I think, for people to understand that too. Like, if they're starting to inquire about it, just continue to be open to that inquiry and know that you're always guided, right? You're always guided, and it's listening to those subtleties of things and following the crumbs to see if it's right for them and potentially having that experience.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to thank you, Neil, for your work that you do, because I know 100% it's for the devotion. It's a devotion. I have absolute respect and admiration for all that you do for the people that do decide to journey. You're an incredible guy, and the words that you've said today have just been so perfect. And I'm really excited to share with our community, our crew, and we'll obviously provide links to where they can connect with you in Costa Rica. And who knows, Beanie and I might venture over there at some point to have one of your experiences, because
why not?
We're very open. So
if it's calling,
I'll probably do it anyway, because I just love a bit of adventure. But I just want to thank you for today. And do you want to share anything else before we go?
No, I really appreciate you guys talking about this subject. I really appreciate you having me with you to share what I've learned and what I know. And yeah, if you ever come to Costa Rica, whether it's to drink medicine or not, you'd be most welcome down on the Caribbean coast.
Thank you, darling.
That's
good. Beautiful. And also too, for everyone to remember, when we will leave the link for your website, etc., so they have information. But just the beautiful work you do with the dietas as well, and just even sitting with the tea, and you've triggered something in my mind to do that. It's funny you said it, because I have my grandma's Dutch, and a dog apparently. my grandma's Dutch coffee pot. We made a chai before we came on. I said, I'm going to put it in a pot so we can have it like more of a ceremony. And then you're talking about just, sitting with the dietas and the teas and stuff. So, yeah, it's just brought it into my consciousness to sit with something a little bit deeper in that for a while. So I might contact you about that too.
Yeah, amazing. The plants all want to talk to us. It's not just ayahuasca. They all have to say, and they all have these amazing gifts and teachings to share with us. Yeah, totally powerful. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Sending love to Costa Rica and to your beautiful partner who supports you in this work and you do together. And yeah, until we meet again. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Lots of love to you both.
So that was Neil from the Plant Medicine People and Sowa Soma. We hope you loved it as much as we did.
It was a great chat, wasn't it?
So fucking good. Hit subscribe, like, get the community happening. Let's join forces. Let's bring the power to the people and what we can do as individuals to fucking revolutionize ourselves to a greater sense of love and connection
and community.